You know, I've been playing a lot of Uncharted recently for the series of videos I've been doing on my channel, and it's kind of got me in the mood to play some other third-person shooters. So I thought today we could take a look at one of those games. The one I chose being Tomb Raider 2013. I really love this game, and so do a lot of other people. Tomb Raider was the series that became huge for the games that came out on the PS1, and both the games and the protagonist, Lara Croft, became a huge name in gaming. Sadly, after the glory days and a few lackluster releases, the series kind of fell by the wayside for a while, until Crystal Dynamics decided to revive the series in 2013. It was a huge success and led to several other games being created in this new, revived Tomb Raider timeline. I have a lot of fond memories of this game. It was the first PS4 game I ever really played, and it wasn't even on my PS4. My friends had gotten one for Christmas, so I would often go over to their house to play it all the time, and I kind of just ended up falling in love with it. Sometimes when my friend would fall asleep, I would just turn on his PS4 and start playing it myself. Eventually, later down the line, I got my own PS4, and for a while I really only had Black Ops 3 to play on it, but then I realized that I had 10 free dollars I could use on the PlayStation Store. And guess what game happened to be on sale? Needless to say, after buying it, I proceeded to disappear for a couple days as I replayed the entire thing and 100% completed it. But enough about myself. Let's get into the game. For this newer series of games, they decided to do a sort of prequel where we get to accompany Laura on her first real journey. And man, does it start out good.
When life flashes before us.
The game doesn't waste time pulling any punches, we just kind of go straight into it. After falling onto a spike, we begin a short tutorial area where we learn the basic controls and meet the first of the many inhabitants on the island. He seems nice. After narrowly escaping death for the first of many times we'll see throughout this adventure, we begin our quest on the lost island of Yamatai. We stumble our way through the forest and find a makeshift campsite and some of the belongings of our friends. Laura looks over some of the footage, which is where we learn a little bit about their voyage. Turns out, Laura and her ragtag group of archaeologists were attempting to find a lost kingdom of Yamatai, an island that housed an ancient civilization that worshipped their queen Himiko. Many have attempted to find it in the past, but Laura seemed determined to find it for herself, and unluckily for her, they actually managed to achieve that goal. After this, we get introduced to the game's main theme, survival. We've been stranded on an island, unable to call for help, so we don't really have a choice in the matter. The game progresses with this theme pretty perfectly, I'd say. It starts with us scrounging around for some equipment, trying to find a source of food, and after that, it's just a matter of journeying deeper into what the island has to offer. We're able to meet up with our friend Sam, but she's accompanied by this man, Matthias, who just radiates suspicion. He also seems very interested in hearing about our friend Sam's theory about how she is actually a descendant of one of the island's old ruler, Queen Himiko herself. Laura, having heard all this before, dozes off, but when we wake back up, Sam and Matthias are gone, and we have a bit of company to deal with. Luckily, we're saved by some of our crewmates and decide to split up and find Sam. We get paired up with this jackass and head further inward until we find some ruins with proof that, yes, this is in fact the lost island of Yamatai. However, we're interrupted by some of the island dwellers, and even though he has a gun, Whitman decides to surrender and we're taken as a hostage. They've actually rounded up more of our crewmates too, but they don't really seem to be too friendly to him. We managed to get away, but oh shit! This is where the game truly begins. Laura has taken her first human life, and you can really see how broken up she is about it. This is where her character begins to really shift tonally, from just a young girl just trying to discover more about herself and the world around her, to a remorseless survivor bent on finding the truth and saving her friends. For now, she's still intact, however, and the game actually does a pretty great job showing how she feels about it. I mean, it was life or death, yeah, but, taking a human life, even in a situation like that, is still pretty crazy for some people. But once you've been forced to do it once, you're also a lot more likely to be able to do it again. Which is where we find ourselves shortly. Plus, we've got a new weapon to commit these murders with. After barely escaping with our life yet again, we meet up with Roth, a man who is friends with Laura's father and who she seems to really look up to. Unfortunately, he's been wounded and gives us instructions about how we can get out an SOS, but sadly, we're gonna have to be the ones to do it. Once we get to the radio tower, we can really see already some of the progression Laura has made when it comes to surviving this island. During those first couple gunfights, Laura was hopped up on adrenaline, and her control with a firearm was all over the place. But now she seems a lot calmer. Her shooting is more precise, and we can see how her opinion of the people she's killing has changed.
Please.
Go to hell.
But hey, enough of this AP psychology bullshit. You want to know about the gameplay, don't you? Well, you are in for a treat, my friend. This game is another cover-based third-person shooter, but unlike a game like Uncharted, this one has a stealth system that actually works. It's a sort of hybrid stealth loud game, and you're free to play however you want. Do you stick to cover, slowly taking out enemies one by one with the bow, or do you rush in guns blazing, which will probably lead to enemy backup, but that also means more rewards for yourself? Firstly, let's go over stealth. Now, for all you stealth purists out there, you sadly won't be able to stealth the entire game, as there are plenty of times you're forced into combat without warning, but a lot of this game's smaller encounters can be completed without raising the alarm. Your main weapon of choice is going to be the bow, as, you know, it's quiet, but if you can also get close enough to an enemy stealthily, you can also do a stealth takedown. You can also use the bow to create distractions and lure enemies into more favorable positions to deal with. Now, for loud, this is when our options really begin to open up. Over the game, you'll get access to 4 main weapons. The bow, which, despite what you may think, can also be pretty effective and loud for hitting faraway enemies. The pistol is the first fire alarm we really get access to. It is fairly low damage, but is pretty accurate, and you can always go for headshots to get quick kills. And then there's the assault rifle, which has tons of ammo and can be good at taking out small groups of enemies quickly, but it often struggles to hit enemies at a range, so it's better suited for more close to medium range combat. Then finally, my personal favorite, the shotgun. Obviously for use in close quarters. Wait for your enemies to get close, and you can often one-shot them if they're a weaker end of enemies. It'll also often be your best bet at killing some of the more heavily armored units in the games. Speaking of enemies, there's actually quite a nice variety that we're going to be seeing throughout the game. A lot of them follow similar archetypes, but the way they arrange them in battles and how they interact with each other is where they truly shine. There's bow guys who usually try to keep their distance, but, you know, the time between their shots is long, and you can often dodge them pretty easily. But if they do manage to catch you off guard and hit you with an arrow, it'll send you into this long hit animation, which will kind of break you out of cover, so do be careful. Melee guys and guys with pistols will usually attempt to move closer to you, sometimes using cover, sometimes just running at you like an idiot. Again, not too hard to deal with. Now, enemies with assault rifles is where it gets tricky, because even though they often seem to have the same exact type of rifle as Laura, they seem to have the recoil control of robots, which, now that I think about it, I guess kind of makes sense. So, as long as they're alive, they're going to be trying to pin you down behind cover with gunfire, limiting you on facing other enemies in the process. A lot of guys might also have access to either Molotovs or dynamite, forcing you out of your cover once again. Guys with shields or armor, forcing you to dodge to open up their defenses before you can counterattack. Slightly armored guys with rifles to further pin you down, while often others will try to rush you with shotguns or melee weapons. They all fit simple descriptions, but when they begin to work in tandem is when they really get dangerous. Luckily for us, as the enemies get tougher, so does Laura. Throughout the game, you'll constantly be getting upgrades for your equipment. Some of these are just small things, like an axe we can use to climb, a fire starter so we can light our torch at any time, a rope ascender to ascend with. But then there's the big boy upgrades, stuff like fire arrows, grenade launchers. I mean, every gun in this game gets an alternate fire mode of some sort. Over the game, you'll be collecting tons of this salvage, either from random crates scattered around or also looted off enemies. When you get to a campsite, you can use your salvage to upgrade your weapons. You know, stuff like reducing recoil, weapon sway, increasing damage or mag size. You can turn the pistol into a 3-round burst. You can get slug rounds to make your shotgun have a little more range. There's tons of upgrades you'll unlock over the game, and it really shows how Laura is evolving over her journey. During battle and at many points during the game, you'll also receive EXP towards skill points, which you can use to further increase Laura's abilities. Abilities themselves are also divided into their own certain tiers, so you'll have to level yourself up to unlock further tiers, which often have better skills. Each tree has its own benefits for the different types of gameplay you'll encounter. A lot of them do tend to revolve around combat, but some can also impact your exploring. Throughout the game, you'll be finding yourself climbing around, exploring the vast landscapes of the island. There's tons of optional stuff to do. Relics, journals, GPS caches, even hunting animals and collecting plants. Each area also has these little challenges you can do, and all of these things I just listed off further grant you with XP and salvage, so you're always getting something out of it. There's not ever really a waste. It's not collectibles for the sake of collectibles. No matter what, you're still getting something out of it. Plus, the collectibles in this game are actually kind of fun. You'll be finding journals from people either from your crew or enemies, or also people that were on the island God knows how long ago. It's a nice way to learn more about it, and I actually kind of do find myself reading them sometimes out of curiosity. The relics also have these nice little blurbs that Laura will say about them, and some you can even get bonus EXP for inspecting closer. Half the time whenever I fire up this game, I'm like, okay, let's just have a nice, casual playthrough. Cut to 2 hours later when I'm walking around picking up weeds, like, what am I even doing anymore? But, hey, if you're not a completionist, I would at least do the optional tombs, because, you know, the game's called Tomb Raider. Also because completing them gives you a ton of XP, salvage, and even a reward map, which puts every single collectible on your map so you can find them even easier. And sometimes you'll even find weapon parts in the tombs. So if you're going to really do any of the optional content, these are probably your best bet. For the most part though, I would say the game does tend to focus on combat as the main theme. Hold on, what's the theme called again? Oh yeah, extreme brutality. You see, if you look at the game, you might have noticed, it's rated M. And this is one of those games that is well deserving of that rating. I mean, putting aside us getting impaled in like the first 5 minutes, the whole game you're just getting messed up. It really helps Laura feel human as you're constantly getting thrown around, shot, blown up. And well, yeah, similar things like that happen in Uncharted. The way Nathan and Laura respond to them is completely different. In Uncharted, Nathan will fall off a building and go, ah, ooh, ow, man, that hurt, and then just get back up, acting completely normal. In Tomb Raider, though, there are whole sections of the game where Laura gets injured, and it actually affects her and how you play. After falling down a literal cliff and crashing through some trees, you have a whole section of the game where you have to try to scavenge for medical supplies. This part is tense, as you can see Laura unable to make the usual jumps she does. Her aim is a lot more loose, and your health is also a lot lower. It really adds to that survival theme the game keeps playing at, and only serves to make Laura stronger in the end. This game also doesn't shy away from the kills either. When you die in this game, you don't just die. Enemies will kill your ass. They will throw you off a cliff. They'll brutally impale you. I mean, during some of the fall scenes, you can get impaled. Okay, let's stop here. I think you get the point. And again, it really just adds once again to that atmosphere of the island and just how crazy everybody that ends up here gets. And all the things they end up doing because of it. Whew. Alright. I think I've ranted about how much I love this game enough, don't you? Oh, wait a minute, the third act. So, the third act. Remember in the Uncharted 2 video when I said the climax in Shambhala was basically perfect? Well, if that was almost perfect, I don't even know how I would describe this game. After finally reuniting with everyone, we were hoping to try to find a way off Yamatai together, but then Bitch Boy over here decides to take Sam back to Matthias so they can perform the Sun Queen ritual. Well, we're not going to let anyone else die on this goddamn island, so Laura and the remains of the crew of the Endurance head inland for hopefully the last time. We see Matthias take Sam into the Sun Guard's fortress, and we're able to sneak our way in at first. We head deeper in and find yet another tomb, and Laura's finally able to piece together what's really wrong with this island.
Vessels. It's not transferring power, it's transferring a soul. All these queens, they're all you, Himiko. First and last. Oh God. And now you want Sam. Well, you're not getting her.
Alright, we gotta move. But unfortunately, it looks like some of the Sun Guard has caught up with us. This part of the game is actually quite challenging, as the Sun Guard behave a little bit differently than the other enemies. Since most of them don't use guns, they'll charge you with katanas, while the others try to keep at range with bows. They're also all heavily armored, so they can take a lot of abuse. It's a nice change of pace, as you'll have to be using the environment a lot more to your advantage. Plus, when we get to the end, we're greeted by one of those big boys. Oh, thank God. I did not want to have to fight that guy. Whew. So, we have another confrontation with Matthias, and once again Himiko messes with the weather to try to get rid of us, and we make our final climb and come face to face with Queen Himiko herself. We deal with more enemies until finally... Oh, God damn it. Okay, after dealing with that, we finally get to give Matthias what he deserves and put an end to Himiko's rule. We meet up with the others and finally make our way off the Dragon's Triangle, and that's Tomb Raider. Is it a perfect game? No. I do have some small issues with the game. I do kind of wish that there was a harder difficulty because, well, hard can be challenging at times. It's not that bad for most of the game. I think it would help if maybe we just had access to less ammo, as my Laura was pretty much always geared up for a fight. The game also tries to have a theme of loss and sacrifices, and I don't think it does it as well as the other themes it tries. I mean, there's just some character deaths that I think needed a bit more put into them to really pay off. I mean, they're still sad, yeah, but it really didn't have the weight that I think they were trying to go for. You do also get the option of returning to the island to complete some of the things you might have missed after beating the main campaign, and while that's nice for doing collectibles and tombs that you may have missed, they don't really repopulate the island with any more enemies, which, you know, I guess makes sense, but it also kind of just makes the world feel pretty empty. But these complaints are pretty mild compared to all the things that I adore about this game. It's one of those games that really just kind of stuck with me for some reason, and I think about it a lot when playing other games that kind of try to do the same things. But you want to know, don't you? Do I think this game is better than the Uncharted series? Yeah, personally I kind of do, but hey, Uncharted 2 comes close in a lot of areas. Maybe in the future we'll talk about some of the other Tomb Raider games, but until then, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Twin Dragos, and I'll see you next time.